Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We got 3 people now. Someone go tell them they're good to go.
Okay.
We are here for round 3.
Round 3. Got a nice classic legacy matchup, bringing it all back with Storm versus Death and Taxes.
Yep, and in particular, we have Bryant Cook on his infamous Tess Storm, T-E-S. I forget how he wants it said. I don't know. I'm saying
I believe he wants it T-E-S, so we're going to call it Tess.
That makes sense.
Good old Tessie.
Up against Theodore Lockman on D&T. D&T seeing a pretty big downswing lately.
Plague Engineer and Red and 6 will do that.
But if I remember, Theodore or Teddy right here has done some things to try to help in that regard.
Yes. Taking a look at his list here. Interestingly enough, most people didn't think it was going to see much play when it got printed, but instead of Mother of Runes, he's running 3 Giver of Runes.
Right. It's an objectively kind of worse card with one big exception.
That 2 toughness.
Yep. It's not a human. It can't protect itself. But, well, we are seeing a weakness of D&T right here as I zoom in on the match, and it is currently Plains versus an Ad Nauseam.
Yes, okay. Look away for a second, and things happen in Legacy.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing Theodore's running is Charming Prince. That is a new card.
Right. It's kind of a pun in that it's a charm is the joke. When it enters the battlefield, it has 3 effects. It either gains 3, it blinks something till end of turn, or what's the third effect on?
I forget. I'm still weak on the newer cards.
1 sec. I can't remember that one because I play a good bit of Standard as well, and that is not seeing Standard play, but here we see it in Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, meanwhile, Brian's
doing Brian
murder
things.
his opponent on turn 1, which is a thing that happens sometimes. So if I look up Charming Prince, where's the deck list on this? Unfortunately, they've kind of blown out on us today, and they didn't all get sent in.
Oh, for the deck list for CBL. Yeah, unfortunately, there was a glitch with Cardboard Live, and while all the deck lists were submitted, we cannot actually get the deck lists from the Cardboard Live database, unfortunately.
Right. News on Charming Prince, though it doesn't seem to matter too much here. The other one's Scry 2. Forgot about that.
Scry 2.
Which is always a nice
Interesting
option.
on a white card.
Yeah, normally doesn't have it, but I guess if it's stapled to a small creature, it kind of goes along.
Yeah.
So we just saw Brian immediately murder his opponent.
That pretty much just skipped over round 1 there.
Yeah, I kind of wish that we could have talked more about that, but there wasn't a lot to do, and Ad Nauseam happened, and that was the end of that. But what does Theodore have in his sideboard to deal with this? I know I walked by him on a table and saw a sideboard card that I know will give Brian some problems.
So he does have the Aethersworn Canoness are probably his best bet here.
Oh, well, there's one right above that that's actually even better.
Oh, really? Over Aethersworn? Okay. So Deafening Silence, Theodore does also have in his list.
So for those who are new, Deafening Silence is essentially the same ability of like a Rule of Law type effect. You can only play 1 non-creature spell a turn for a single white mana.
Mm-hmm.
That lets Theodore, who's going to be on the draw or on the play here, just immediately play that on turn 1 and make Bryant have to answer it.
Right.
Bryant can no longer keep the type of hands that allow him just to go off on turn 1 and do something like make 12 goblins, because if he doesn't have an answer to that, he's going to die very quickly.
It's true. And now, depending on how well Theodore knows this matchup, he may or may not bring in the Rest in Peace. That's usually a mistake people will do with Tess. They'll think they're playing against Ant Storm, and they'll bring in Graveyard Hate. And Tess is not as dependent on the graveyard.
No, it just kind of has it as like a backdoor option. So is there anything else in the board that could be useful here?
I mean, so this Rest in Peace and Surgicals he might bring in, but I probably wouldn't. I think the Deafening Silence and Aethersworn Canonist are his best bet. I like the Aethersworn Canonist a little bit better. I know the Deafening Silence can come out turn 1, which would have been relevant there, but I just think having a body stapled to it that can put a little bit of pressure.
That's certainly good in the long run, but it does have a weakness, and that is also an artifact creature.
True.
And if we go look at Bryant's The Epic Storm sideboard, we have 2 copies of Crash. Do you know what Crash is?
Is Crash like you can sacrifice a mountain instead of paying its mana cost?
Yes, it is a shatter for 2 and a red that you can alternate cast by sacking a mountain.
Yes, yep. That's a sweet one.
So combining 2 Crash and a Pulverize mean that those Aethersworn Canonists are not very safe.
Yeah, that is a good point. So, yeah, I think you're right then, Zach. I think the Deafening Silence would be the better sideboard card, but he only has 1.
Yeah. Additionally, Bryant has 2 Chain of Vapors, which are probably coming in here, as they allow him to answer these hateful permanents that he has to know are coming.
Yes, of course.
This is how D&T deals with any type of like storm or combo variant. They don't have a ton of stack-based interaction, so they definitely have a lot in their hate cards between the Thalias and these sideboard cards that Bryant can't win if they're on the board.
Yeah. And, I mean, that is also just a big thing with Storm. Half the deck of Storm is just figuring out and metagaming, sideboarding for the cards you think your opponent's going to sideboard for.
Right. And inevitably, one of the, I would say, issues or even strengths, depending on how you want to look at it, of Storm, is that your deck does one thing and does it very well. So you need to make sure that your sideboard is dead on, because if you miss, you may not be able to answer a particular permanent.
Exactly.
So going over Bryant's list, looks like he's probably going to take out his Duresses and take out his main deck Defense Grid. I've seen he's been running that lately. That's been an interesting card to see main deck. But I guess if, again, he's only doing one thing, it's really, really is useful at allowing him to do that.
True.
Anything special over there in Theodore's list?
I mean, the Giver of Ruins is probably going to come out unless he really wants to protect those Aethersworn Canonists. At the same time, I mean, there's a lot of things that don't really do much.
Right.
So the Swords of Plowshares can come out. Is Bryant running the Xantid Swarm?
He is not, but it wouldn't matter too much from the D&T angle anyway. They don't have
that's
too many counter spells running around.
That's true. So the Swords of Plowshares will definitely come out. Other than that, he doesn't really have too much to bring in.
Yeah, and he does have some things to take out. Nice seeing, 2 copies of Tomic. Doesn't really have too much text in this matchup other than being a 2/3.
Right.
It does have a copy of Sanctum Prelate, which can give some issues. So maybe we will be seeing cards like those Rest in Pieces, not because they're good, but because they're better than Swords to Plowshares.
Right. There's just, nothing else to bring in at that point.
Right. It may just be by default.
Yeah, I'd be keeping in the Giver of Ruins at this point just to protect the Aethersworn Canonists.
Also, not without note that this is not Ant, though it can win like Ant sometimes. This is Tess, where he can jam out a pile of goblins. And having a 1/2 that gives another 1 toughness creature protection from red means that Bryant may come just short of crossing the finish line when he makes goblins.
Yeah, I remember when Deathrat Shaman was legal. I had a couple games that I won because my Storm opponent made a bunch of goblins, and Deathrite Shaman blocking plus gaining life was enough to keep me in the game.
Just enough to keep your head above water.
Yeah.
So,
looks like Bryant took a mulligan.
Yep. And this is interesting. We have the London Mulligan in effect. It's been in effect for a while, and Bryant is a combo deck, but he's also a combo deck that is essentially based off having a lot of cards
in hand. So
right, he's not like a show and tell where he can go low and then just hope it works.
Yep.
He may not have enough. Ooh, Theodore here doesn't have the Deafening Silence.
Nope.
So let's see if Bryant punishes him for it.
Just basically doing that turn 1 Aether Vial and praying. He's got Stoneforge Mystic, Rashadenport, Caracas, Wastelands. Not the best Storm hands.
Yeah, knowing you're against Storm, I don't think I keep that one.
Yeah, I mean, considering that is the deck that he kept, I feel...
Oh, was that? That's a Giver.
Yep. Yeah, Waste on the Valk. I don't hate that play as far as
I love that play.
Yeah, what he has left.
There's the Crash.
Nice.
So in response to the Crash, we're going to tap that Vial, put the Giver in play.
Yep. And now Theodore can go Rashad Port and just basically try and keep Bryant off mana to go off, but that's a very dangerous line of play to take against Storm.
I mean, it's what he's got. Oh, and here. I
Yeah,
wonder if
and
he's
all
just
of a
getting him out of hand or if he's going to start making goblins.
Nah, I think he might start making goblin. Oh, yep. Got the Infernal Tutor, nothing left in hand.
I wonder what this actually is, because there's not enough mana here to go off.
And not enough to get an Empty the Warrens either.
I don't think he would have brought in the Echo of Aeons, and even then it's still stuck in his hand right now, not in the graveyard.
He's saying go.
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay. Be interesting to see what he grabs.
If I had to guess in the blind here, my guess is he's just grabbing an Ad Nauseam and trying to draw land.
Yeah, he is one away from Ad Nauseam.
Right.
And it's not like Theodore's going to cast any discard to make him discard it.
Right. So if I'm Theodore here and we know he has the Rishadan port, I'm looking at the port, but the port doesn't do a ton because it's specifically a fetch land in play.
Right, exactly. So Brian can just keep that fetch land up and not expose it.
Ooh,
there's the Canonist. That's probably
Just
the best thing Theodore could draw.
Yep.
And Canonist.
Yep. So this is going to be a Canonist that's going to be protected by a Giver of Runes.
Yeah.
So outside of Pulverize, I don't think Bryant has a way of getting this off the board.
Yep. It looks like Brian just drew a Ponder. He is smartly using the Mox to cast the Ponder, not tapping that fetch lands, exposing himself to Rashad Port.
Right. Not only that, he keeps himself getting the ability to draw a Brainstorm and fetch away.
True.
Which seems very important right now, as he's going to need to dig. And I'm going through the list, and I do not see a way for him to get that off the board without getting access to his Pulverize.
Yeah.
So, in this particular situation, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I believe D&T is pretty heavily favored right now. Assuming that Teddy doesn't make any blunders that are too big.
Right.
Okay, we have a Vial coming down.
Yep.
Not the best thing this late in the game, and certainly not the best thing against Storm, but it is a way that he will be able to get additional mana late so that he can start using those Rishadan ports.
True. Flicker Wisp and Stoneforge Mystic. Honestly, it's probably going to wait to cast that off of Aether Vial just to leave his options open.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, here comes Lion's Eye Diamond. So Bryant has the mana. Now he needs the action.
Yeah, there's not a ton he can do to get out of this here.
Yeah. And he doesn't really want to Ad Nauseam now because Teddy does have somewhat of a clock on the board. You know,
right.
if he Ad Nauseams and doesn't get what he needs or goes a little too low, doesn't have time to actually cast those hate cards, that could spell the end for Bryant.
Yeah, even interesting. He can't alt cast the Pulverize. He would need to just legitimately cast it right now because he doesn't have two mountains.
Yeah.
And I think fetching out this Badlands here is a nod to that he's going to need to start spending the mana, and he needs to make sure he has the mountains in play.
Yep. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle.
So, straight up, I think we both think Tess is favored in this match.
Overall, yes. In this particular game,
not in this game, but overall in the match.
Yes.
What do you think that Theodore needs to do in Game 3 to stop that, to tilt things in his favor?
I think he needs to... Oh, Bryant's going for the Ad Nauseam.
That's an important one.
I think Theodore probably needs to mulligan a bit better. I think he got lucky this match with that top deck Aethersworn Canonist.
I agree.
If he did not get that, I don't think he would be winning this game because Bryant was about to kill him until Theodore top decked the Aethersworn Canonist.
Yeah.
I think Theodore needs to be slightly more aggressive with his mulligans.
Yeah, I think so many of his cards are kind of generic pieces of cardboard in this match.
Yep.
That he needs to go find the ones that aren't.
Yeah, and he kept like a very solid Death and Taxes hand in the blinds, but like this is game 2.
Right.
Like he knew what he was going up against.
So interesting here. Brian is flipping over these cards.
4, 5, 9, 11. So Brian is currently on 6. How much is... found the I just forgot the name. The Saka Mountain.
Crash?
Yeah.
Okay, so he has chain and crash, which is one of the ways he can get out of this. So this is what we were saying earlier between having to go to the Giver versus the Mother of Runes.
Yep.
Giver can't protect itself.
Right.
So if he can find a window to chain the Giver and then crash the Aethersworn Canonist and go off.
Yes. Which he basically has this turn to do.
But here's the problem. He's at 3, facing Theodore, who has 3 power in play.
Right.
So it's going to involve Theodore taking his shields down, but he does get to attack if he wants to try to go for the kill.
Yep. And Bryant is completely tapped out.
Yep, he is tapped out.
Theodore does know Bryant's entire hand.
So,
well,
that's going to make sure that this happens.
Yep.
So if he lets this resolve, he has to crash in response, which means Teddy can tap, blank the crash, and then if
Bryant
this resolves, he can name. Let's see. I didn't write down his hand.
He got
I think
empty
the number's on
warrens.
4.
Yeah, I would say 4. Shuts off Bryant's win conditions.
Oh no, he can name 1 and stop the chain.
Oh yeah,
in the first place.
Stop it from happening ever. That also shuts off any Bryant's cantrips that he might draw.
Well, Bryant doesn't have time to cantrip because as long
Yeah.
as that Aethersworn Canonist is in play, if he spends his next turn cantripping, he's dead to the board.
Right.
So this Sanctum Prelate was incredibly strong here.
Yes, it was.
Forcing Bryant's hand.
Yes, actually, I think more people dressed up as me has entered the regular costume contest.
We have some people going all in on that. Bald cap and all.
Yeah, several bald caps and a couple shaved heads.
One person's even playing your bad deck.
Is it your actual deck?
DJ is playing my actual deck, wearing a suit, wearing a bald cap.
Yep.
He said he lost after drawing 14 off of Grizzlebrand. He said, how does this deck do that?
Sometimes Sneak and Joe loses after drawing 14 with Grizzlebrand.
Oh, okay. So Heaven Island. What can Bryant do to dig himself out of this?
I don't think much. Well, he's going for it.
That's a bold claim.
How's he getting rid of this Aethersworn Canonist? Also, Bryant should be at 1 right now, I believe, correct?
Looks like it.
Chain of Vapor.
So he's starting chain. Is he going to target his own thing first? Okay. Oh, okay. I know what he's doing here. He's sacking his lands to pick up his Chrome Moxes to give himself additional storm count, so that hopefully he can get things through here. I assume the Prelate's on 4.
I believe so.
Sadly, they picked the triangle dice, which is
Yeah,
the bad one for
the one we
coverage.
cannot tell for coverage.
And it's clearly not on 1, so we will see if this is going to be enough, if he can find a way to get the Prelate off the table.
If he didn't name 1 and he did... What? All right. Revealing Pass in Flames.
No, that's a
Or not Pass in Flames.
Rite of Flame.
Rite of Flame, thank you. Wrong Flame.
yeah, wrong flame.
Bryant casting the Olympic Flame.
Okay, just building up that storm count. Oh, it's also
It's
not on
4. What
4.
is that? Can you find out what that Sanctum Prelate's on?
12 goblins.
Yeah, that could do it, but what is that?
Actually, for what it's worth, 12 goblins is not enough here. Not even close.
Yeah.
against Death and Taxes with 2 creatures already in play. So it's either on 2 or 3. My guess is 2, as he... Yeah, okay, we're having that cleared up right now, because that's why Bryant pitched the tutor.
Makes sense. Yep.
Oh, looks like the return of Canonist. Yep. Fortunately, that is not a Chalice of the Void.
Yeah.
You can cast creatures into that.
Yep.
I almost caught myself for a second, but I was like, oh, wait, nope, that's not Chalice.
Here come the goblins.
Right, but 12 goblins is only going to buy time.
Yeah. And Brian's already used up a lot of his answers.
Right. And, again, he didn't actually have an answer, or like a permanent answer.
No, just bounces.
So now it's back in play. Is he hoping he makes a mistake here? Because I don't think this kills him in time.
No, it doesn't. They're getting ahead of himself, lowering Brian's life total instead of his own.
Yep.
And here comes Stoneforge Mystic. Most likely,
Yeah, that's just lethal. He just needed 1 more power in play.
Yep.
And he can just attack with everything. Okay, Bryant had to go off in desperation there. And valiant attempt, but unfortunately just getting goblins that have to be on both offense and defense is problematic.
Yeah. See, I hope
Attention players, we have pizza. It is now here. It's
Pizza!
or 2 slices and a drink for $5.
Paco gets pizza. So, so Theodore kind of got rewarded for keeping a suboptimal hand.
I agree.
And I hope that doesn't like influence him where he's like, oh, this is a great hand to keep. Look, I won.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that, he kind of got there on that, but it kind of also showed us how powerful those cards are against Tess.
Oh, yeah. Like, Brian's plan is he needs to win as fast as possible. The more time he gives Theodore, the more time Theodore can establish himself, the worse Brian's chances of winning get.
Yeah. And responding to a buddy named Dredge in our chat, putting up Goblin Warstrike, he's not running a copy of Goblin Warstrike. Goblin Warstrike in that spot would have dealt 12, which would have let him attack all in if he had it. But he's not running a copy of that in the sideboard. He does, however, have a copy or 2 copies of Empty the Warrens, and 1. Does he have the Grape Shot? He does have a Grape Shot. And Grape Shot in this matchup can be the win condition. That's normally unlikely, but what normally happens is it comes down and picks off some Thalias.
Yes. Also, Brian's favorite card, he put it in the trophy of his
Right.
first Leaving a Legacy Open.
Right. And he's 2-0 here, going for the second.
Pat's like wafting pizza in front of our face, and I don't think our viewers want to listen to us
No.
munching on pizza.
Do the Tazon Day. Pull the mic away from your face while you're chewing. It's fine. No one's going to notice.
The fact that it's called the Tazon Day and everyone knows that that's what he does tells me that people notice that, Pat.
Maybe.
So, it doesn't look like either player here has made any changes for play and draw.
They are confident with their lists.
It makes sense. There's not too much play in.
Yeah.
All your cards here are just generically good. None of them are good based on necessary game state.
True.
How much was the matchup flip with Bryant on the play?
A lot.
Pat's just asking questions while chewing.
No, I asked a question while I wasn't chewing. I asked how much does the matchup flip when Bryant's on the play?
I would guess a lot. All of Theodore's pieces of hate are sorcery speed permanent based. So even if he does have the deafening silence, if Bryant goes and makes 12 goblins, it doesn't do a lot.
True.
So what Theodore's looking for here is having something like the deafening silence, having something like the Ether Swan Canonist, but also having
If
the
you
ability
asked
to
us
beat
to pull a
the
list
goblins.
for you, and you had
True.
asked for played steam vents, please come up and check your list whenever you have a minute.
No turn 1 deafening silence.
Nope.
Taking a look. Seanport. What is that? Oh, Fairy Macabres. Wait, Theodore's wearing Fairy Macabres?
I didn't see that. Oh,
I saw
maybe a surgical.
I saw Surgicals, but no Fairy Macabre. Yeah, there's no Fairy Macabre.
Maybe that was a surgical and we just cut some glare.
Maybe. I hope so. Otherwise, Theodore's getting a deck check.
Well, we'll see when if he ends up playing it.
I mean, even so.
It's not good, but again,
Yeah.
we talked about it earlier where he just has some real bad ones for this matchup.
Right.
It's not worse than Source of Objects, so.
Okay. Bryant looking to take his time with this hand.
Yep.
No, but
No, or
looks
just
like it's starting off.
putting that empty end of the Chrome box. Is Brian just going off right now? He hasn't broke out his storm counters. Oh, is he reaching for his storm counters?
Looks like.
Yep, he reached for his storm counters. This is his best bet.
Okay, just raising that count, making sure everything's right. There's a crash on
his own mocks just
Yep.
to get that storm count up.
There's. Okay, storm count isn't high enough to get the tendrils. So it's looking like we're going to have some goblins here.
More goblins.
Yeah, I don't think he has enough mana to do anything else. Nope.
Yep. Here come the goblins.
So he ticked that up to 7, so I assume this is 14 goblins.
Mm-hmm. Should be more than enough goblins there. Oh, man, already. Oh, okay. I thought they were scooping him up.
No, he's shuffling. D&T can win through this. It's just going to take a real lot.
Yeah.
I think 14
Also,
is one short of the Batterskull number, but he is also on the play, and the Batterskull's not in play. So I don't actually think he can win.
yeah, I mean, I think it was also key that Theodore didn't have the Aether Vial, because the Aether Vial would allow him to accelerate out the creatures to get more blockers.